Now that in part one I laid out all of the components of my hypothesis that members of the government, CEOs, elites, people in the 1% knew that this pandemic was going to happen, I will get into how Bill Gates fits into all this. First, I will show you some video clips of Gates talking about the impact of a huge pandemic and the importance of vaccinations. Then we'll get into his background and how he ties in with a lot of these publicly funded organizations.
Impact of a huge epidemic, like a flu epidemic, would be phenomenal because all the supply chains would break down. Today, the greatest risk of global catastrophe doesn't look like this. Instead, it looks like this. If anything kills over 10 million people in the next few decades, it's most likely to be a highly infectious virus rather than a war. We're not ready for the next epidemic. The impact of a huge epidemic, like a flu epidemic, would be phenomenal because all the supply chains would break down, there'd be a lot of panic, many of our systems would be overloaded, and so we all hope that doesn't come along. But being ready for epidemics of different sizes, there's a lot more we should do in the resources to go engage in the affected countries, the allocation decisions. As we've seen various flu scares come along, we haven't had a super good response. Using the flu vaccine doesn't really work that well in the equatorial regions because you don't get this lead time like we do in the northern hemisphere. But a universal flu vaccine, I think, would be brilliant because it would reduce pandemic risk. I also think the human health benefit would be larger, particularly in developing countries, than we'd expect.
Now the stupidity of now this really shows that they think Gates is that smart. It's either you share my hypothesis that Gates knew about this, he is playing a role in it, or that he's just that smart. That 2015, he knew all of this was going to happen. Now, here's a few things that I found interesting doing a little bit of research on Bill Gates' background. So Bill Gates' father was actually on the board for Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood aborts children. It's involved in the eugenics movement. In Margaret Sanger's own words, you can look these up. These are not my words. She wanted to euthanize. She wanted to kill off African Americans and people that she felt were inferior. And of course, Thomas Watson, who founded IBM, who Bill Gates' mother was on the board of, his granddaughter married Margaret Sanger's granddaughter. So you have that connection there as well. But the connections appear less coincidental and more calculating the further you dig. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, it funds the National Institute of Health, the United Nations, the World Health Organization, and the CDC, the Center for Disease Control. Now you get into Dr. Fauci. What you've got to realize is anytime somebody is propped up by the mainstream media, like Gates, he's talking to Trevor Noah, he's on CNN, he's on Fox. Dr. Fauci, Dr. Birx, they are part of the problem instead of the solution. You had Dr. Fauci, who is on the leadership council for the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Look this up if you don't believe me. In 2017, Dr. Fauci told a crowd at Georgetown University that there would be a surprise outbreak during the Trump presidency. Now you get into Deborah Birx. She is a board member for the Global Fund to Fight AIDS, Tuberculosis, and malaria, which was founded by the Gates Foundation. Now you dig further, deeper into the surface, you find out that in November of 2019, the Pierbright Institute, which is funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, was granted European patent EP 3172319B1 for a coronavirus vaccine that may be used to treat humans. And Dr. Fauci said on the news a few days ago that the virus will keep coming back and the ultimate game changer will be a vaccine. So will you allow Gates and your governments to force you to have a vaccination? Will you submit to it? You also have Bill Gates. I couldn't find the clip because Google, which owns YouTube, which is working for the New World Order, delisted everything. They changed their algorithm. There was a clip of Bill Gates, you could probably find this on the internet if you're vigilant enough, where he says that the problem is humans who espouse too much carbon into the atmosphere. If you could kill off 10 old people, you could hire 10 teachers. He also talks about vaccinations for years. So Bill Gates is funding Dr. Fauci, Dr. Birx, the World Health Organization, the CDC, all these other organizations, and already has a patent in the works. There was also an article by the Daily Wire today that said there are clinical trials for a vaccination that was funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And notice Bill Gates is being propped up by the mainstream media as a hero. In part 3, we will get into more of a historical context pertaining to population control. We will talk about the Club of Rome, their own white papers admitting that they needed a catastrophic event for population control. I will show you the white paper, and I will let you form your own opinion. But in my opinion, that is how Bill Gates fits in to this entire pandemic.